So let's begin. Let's get to our first author. Ian Brown is a feature writer for the Globe and Mail. His work has won a total of 9 Gold National Magazine and National Newspaper Awards. He is the host of CBC Radio's Talking Books, as well as the anchor of TVO's 2 documentary series, Human Edge and The View from Here. Ian Brown will be reading from The Boy in the Moon.
It's a great pleasure to be associated with the Trillium. It's a great thing to be, nominated for and to win, and fantastic. It gives you money, which is fantastic because when you're a writer, you don't really make a lot of money, and it's nice to have some money. It's nice to be able to pay off, a tenth of the visa bill or whatever it is you owe after you win the Trillium. But it also validates you because, the kind of books that get written and that are nominated for this award are the kind of books that involve a writer paying attention to what would seem like an irrelevant detail of life for quite a long period of time, several years perhaps, and then writing about it. And you really go down the wormhole, and it feels weird down the wormhole. You do not really feel like a human being. And so when you come out the other end and somebody says, well, we're nominating you for this prize, that's fantastic. It makes you think that following something that you knew to be true, some little thing, as opposed to what was supposed to be true or other people told you was true or that you thought should be true or that you wanted to believe was true because it would make you popular. Instead, you followed this weird thing and you get nominated. And that's fantastic. And finally, it's a prize that reinforces a stylish, longish storytelling. And that is, I think, the only kind of storytelling that lasts or that people remember or that they reread or that they remember reading. Or certainly it's the only kind I remember writing, and I write a lot of the other kind as well. And in an age like the one we live in, where everything is short and fast and instant and must exist within the 24-hour news cycle, whatever the hell that is, I still haven't figured it out. An award that tells you to tell a story as well as you can is a radical act of anti-establishmentarianism. And for that reason, I am proud to be associated with it. I'm going to read you, I'm just going to read you 2 little bits from this book. One I'm going to read you because I've been doing some reporting this past week on, I was talking to Elizabeth Harvey, who's turns out, the English department at the University of Toronto is like the 7th best English department in the world. They measure these things. How they know that, I don't know, but it is. And Elizabeth Harvey is one of its stars. And she writes about, she's a phenomenologist. And she writes about the senses of people in the Renaissance and how much more attuned they were to their senses than we are now. And anyway, she was talking to me about phenomenology and saying that in the early moderns, when they experienced something, they really experienced it. The line between what was real and what was not real was much more porous than it is today. Today we're more ocular and audio, whereas then they were more concerned with touch and smell, and what was real and what was not blended a lot. And when I was writing this book, because it's about my son Walker, who has this very rare genetic affliction. He's nearly 16 now, and he looks about 10, and he has the mind of a 2-year-old, and he always will. He can't speak. I don't know how much he can understand. He can walk around. He has a very charming sort of cocktail party personality, is the medical description of it. He's a very nice guy, but he is in his own world. And he didn't sleep through the night for 10 years, so my wife and I traded off nights. He was constantly sick. He couldn't swallow, so he couldn't put on weight, so he had to be fed through a tube. He was constantly hits himself violently for reasons we don't understand. Sometimes he laughs afterwards, which is particularly tragic to me. So it was hard to figure out how to keep him alive, and took a long time. But even more important to me, troubling to me, and that was I didn't know what the value of his life was, because so much of it was lived on the periphery and in the darkness, and because it took so much effort on the part of so many people, even to keep his wan little light flickering. And I'm not a sentimentalist, and I couldn't figure out if it was worth that he was alive, worth it. So the borderline between, I was fascinated to be talking to this phenomenologist because I realized that when I was raising Walker, I was a phenomenologist because the line between what was real and what was not was very blurred. And so writing about him became complicated. So this is a section that I think made me think that there was some phenomenology in this book. Made me think yesterday that there was some phenomenology in this book. And this is, when Walker was 11, he went to a group home. He spends most of his time in a group home, 2/3 of it. Then he comes home to us, and then he goes back there. And it was hard to send him to a group home. But, he changed. He became sort of more confident and things. And anyway, in the group home, the oldest, there's 7 young people there. The oldest was a boy who was 25. He looked about 16. And he's a very nice kid. He never looked at you directly. Many intellectually disabled people are very shy, and they can't make eye contact for that reason. But he always knew if you acknowledged him, and he was a very good guy. He was always on a video game, and Walker, who doesn't watch TV but is fascinated by light, would stand in front of the game. And this young lad, Colin, would let Walker do that. And anyway, this is after Walker went into the home. Phenomenology or not, I still need glasses, A few weeks passed. Late on a Monday in December, Trish Pearson, Walker's night worker, he has 24-hour care. He needs that all the time. Trish Pearson, Walker's night worker, telephoned my mobile. That was unusual. I just thought you might want to know that Colin, that was the 25-year-old boy, Colin's near the end, she said, because you have a thing with him. He had only one lung. I hadn't been aware of that, and now it was failing. I didn't find words to say. Colin lasted 3 days, and then he was gone. Now no one minds or doesn't mind if Walker blocks their view of the TV. Walker came home to us a week later. I walked in the door after work, and Olga is Walker's nanny, Olga told Walker I was home, and he came over to say hello, which was unusual. Normally he doesn't do that. You have to call him. He seemed not sad, but expectant. If something could have been on his mind, it would have been, if you understand my meaning. I didn't know whether to mention Colin's death. Had Walker noticed? Trish didn't think any of the residents were aware of Colin's death, but I wasn't sure. So I thought, I'll say something anyway. He was standing next to me, and he wasn't moving from my arms from the basic comfort. Hello, Beagle, I said, because that is what I always say, trying to be consistent. How are you? I rubbed his shoulders briskly, as I always do, and put my head at his eye level and lightly bonked his helmeted head with my unhelmeted head and said, allez, 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 which is what I always say. And then I pulled him closer and put my mouth beside his ear. It felt important, but also like I was talking to a brick. I said, I was sorry to hear about Colin. And I said, do you miss him by the TV, hunched on that little stool, playing his video game? And I said, I know you were pals. And I said, he let you stand in the way. That's a nice thing to do for someone, you know, not to mind if you stand in the way. And I said, Colin never looked at anyone, but he always knew when someone was there, right? And I said, he always knew you were there. And then I stopped and waited. Walker was looking right at me. I said a little louder, it might be better for him now. He was in a lot of pain and very sick. And I said, remember how when we called his name or said hi, he never looked up, but we always caught him looking afterwards, looking and smiling, how grateful he was? And I said, he was a good guy, Walkie. And I said, he was glad you were his friend. And I said, you must miss him. I know it's sad, but don't worry. Sometimes you have to feel sad. I said other things, but I can't remember them now. And finally I said, I don't know where he is now, but that doesn't mean you can't remember him. Anyway, Bubby, I'm sorry your friend died. And then I rubbed his back again. He seemed, I admit this is highly subjective, somehow relieved. Something in his eyes softened. His breathing slowed. Could that be what he had meant to tell me? I said all this quietly so Olga, his nanny, wouldn't hear and think I'd lost my mind, but I'm pretty sure she heard me anyway. I still don't know why I said it, but I would rather have said it than not, in case he heard, in case he understood. Thank you.